You are listening to the Practicing People's Podcast. I'm CJ Hammond.
And I'm Jordan White. Together, we'll be taking a journey into the practices that help us align with our mind, body, and soul.
So take a deep breath, release, and remain curious as we explore new ways to enhance our lives.
All right, welcome to the show, practitioners. Good to have you with us. And in honor of our guest today, got on my Be a Good Person hat, we have with us Drick Bernstine. He's a self-driven, highly motivated individual who thrives on managing multiple challenging tasks simultaneously. And as the CEO of Be a Good Person, Drick skillfully steers the company towards achieving a variety of goals and dreams that serve a larger purpose. His dynamic personality enables him to excel in networking across various social settings, bringing visionary ideas to life. So Drake is committed to inspiring Be a Good Person employees to make a positive impact everywhere they go, recognizing the profound influence they can have on those around them. Drake, we're so happy to have you with us, brother. Thank you for being here.
Thank you both for having me, man. I'm excited for this talk, and thanks again for just allowing me to be in this space.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. We are so glad to have you here. I've seen Jordan wearing the Be a Good Person for quite some time now. I'm like, where does this all come from? Where is the source? So it is beautiful to also have the connecting dot right here being you, Drick. So with Be a Good Person, the clothing line, the staple, the statement, can you explain, as we'll start to dive into things, just talk us through a little bit of your journey that led you to where you are today? From how does one even come up with a clothing line like Be a Good Person and the message and the mantra that is instilled in you and everything you do? Tell us a little bit about your upbringing, what you're about.
So I'll try and keep it as short as I can, but my dad was a professional athlete. He played in the NFL. So he ended up playing for the Broncos and the Chargers. So my upbringing was focused a lot around sports. I think in eighth grade, I decided football wasn't for me and I was going to stick to basketball. So I took on basketball as my challenge. Luckily, I had like a great family, and my dad kind of understood the process of being like a really talented athlete and what that looked like, and like that there wasn't really shortcuts to that. So I think that instilled a lot in me that I still carry with me today. Basically went to 3 different colleges. I started at University of Denver, transferred to North Dakota, and then I ended up finishing up at Washington State University. I then took over and ran some of my dad's company for him at Solace Meds, which is a cannabis company based in Colorado. I did that for 3.5 years, which then brought me to, I took a trip out of the country to Spain and Morocco with a good friend of mine named Driss. We were gone for probably like 20 days. And when I returned, I spoke with some of the partners from Be a Good Person, and they were like, hey, we'd love for you to come on. Like, you always have supported the brand, and we think you can like carry out a bigger vision for the company. So that's kind of what led me to being at Be a Good Person. Luckily, all the partners I've known for multiple years, I think probably like 15 plus years. So it's been cool, them allowing me to kind of take on the company, take on the message, and just kind of adapt that into my everyday lifestyle, and also like push that out to the world, honestly.
It's incredible. It's taken over the world, believe. I've seen now my Instagram feed is filled with the Broncos partnership.
Good.
Like I said, Jordan, I'm gonna, next time you see me, I will have my shirt on.
I love it.
Absolutely. Well, whatever you're willing to share, Drake, curious about this trip and to Morocco, if you don't mind sharing a little more about that. What was
Yeah,
that about?
so it was crazy. I hadn't been out of the country except for a basketball trip that we took when I was at the University of North Dakota. We had took like a tour over to Europe, and we played over there. I think we were there for maybe like 10 days, but obviously we were kind of focused on basketball. We hit all the good tourist sites and saw the Coliseum and all kinds of museums and stuff, which was dope. But I hadn't really been outside the country outside of that. So my buddy Driss, his family's from Morocco. So he was like, hey man, we got to go to Morocco. He's been telling me since we were little kids, like, you got to come to Morocco. And I was like, nah, I'm good. Like, I'm not trying to leave the country. Like, I kind of like being here. Like, I know exactly what's going to happen. I speak the same language. And he was like, nah, you got to try it. And I was like, okay, like, whatever. So randomly, it just like came upon me. I was like, I got to change something up, try something new, and just like not be afraid to change. And so I ended up going with him. We ended up going to New York for 5 days. We stopped and watched one of my buddies play for the Nets, who at the time, and then we went and watched a couple of my buddies coach for the Trailblazers. So we played a little bit of basketball out there, or not played, watched, excuse me, and then kind of hung around some of our good friends. And then we carried on, went to Spain, met a couple of friends there, hung out there in Barcelona, and then we went to Morocco and we did a really quick tour of Morocco. It was kind of like short stints in all the countries, but it was amazing going out there and just kind of checking all the cool parts and the capitals and the museums and just the culture. I think a lot of that when I came back from there changed me a lot just because I had never like seen necessarily a third world country and like just seeing how like blessed we are in America and just like the life that I live personally and just like it kind of moved me. And so when the opportunity came about for Be a Good Person, I just felt like there was lots of alignment through that. So it was kind of awesome that the trip kind of carried over into more blessings and more good things. So that's kind of what brought me to this point. And now I've been Be a Good Person for about a year and maybe a half. So it's been cool.
What was like the what really we're talking about, I guess, is a change in perspective. And prior to that, do you feel like you were a fixed state person? I know that I'm a person that's a creature of habit. My girlfriend gives me a lot of flack for that. Like trying something new is something that I I vehemently tend to push against, and then it's like the second I do try or give some ground, I'm like, it wasn't so bad, or that, oh man, I'll never be the same. Try a restaurant, this or that.
Yeah. I mean, speaking to routine, like that was one thing that was driven into my head by both my parents. Like, you wake up, make your bed, check on yourself, brush your teeth, do X, Y, and Z, roll out, do all these things. So I think that was kind of my mindset. And then college basketball, like that instills a lot of schedule. Like you got to do the same thing over and over and over. And it's like, there isn't really like, oh yeah, here, go change your routine. There isn't really time for that. You're not in charge of your routine at that point. But I think that also kind of transcended into the change because it was something new for me and like even I think last week I told somebody I was like yeah I got to throw myself out of like routine because sometimes I get too set in routine where it's like are you really allowing for change to even like come upon you? Are you really allowing for like yourself to even potentially be moved to do some sort of change? So a lot of times, like, especially recently, anytime I feel like I'm too locked into a routine or I'm feeling like almost not necessarily stuck, but just kind of caught up in the routine of life, I'll try and really switch up something and alter a bunch of things. So, like, if it's workout times, I'll start working out at random times. If it's times that I'm eating, I'll start eating at random times. So all kinds of different things that I just try and kind of implement and change to kind of see if that can like throw me in and like in the evolution of kind of changing the pattern of the way I kind of think or do things. It kind of allows me to kind of get a new perspective and be like, well, maybe I could work out at this time, or maybe I should eat at this time because I'm getting more restless around noon. So if I ate earlier or had a snack, like all kinds of different things. So just trying out a lot of different stuff. So I hope that answers the question.
No, it's weird. It's crazy because I think we all have athletic backgrounds, and the thing that you was coming to mind when you were speaking about that is this weird nuanced dance between what is routine and what is discipline. I think discipline is the link between the accountability and the action is the discipline. But again, when do we move from like that discipline to sort of an autopilot sense? And it's like I got to shake something up. So that was what came to mind when you were talking about that. When is the time for discipline, and then when is the time to shake something up? And looks like you chose to shake it up, which benefited you.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's important to shake things up because a lot of times it's like you said, like you get caught up in like the discipline aspect and you want to do things the same way. And like, are you waking up at that same time every day? Like, are you making sure that you eat three healthy meals? All those things. And it's like certain times, I mean, I even posted on this, I have a social feed that's kind of just based around like a small paragraph a day. It's called DB Chronicles, and I wrote about this the other day. It was just like sometimes you got to live life. Like you can't just get so set in a routine that you're like notching yourself. Like, oh man, I can't believe I didn't get up at the normal time. Oh man, I can't believe I didn't work out. Like certain days you probably aren't going to work out, and that's okay. Like just kind of being fair to yourself, because I think a lot of times people are willing to give a lot of grace to everybody else, but not necessarily to themselves. And I think that's important, especially as you think about like your mindset and like being fair to yourself. And if you're constantly beating yourself down into the ground, like how can you really continue to elevate not only yourself, but the people around you?
Preach.
Man, that's cool. It's great to hear you say that, especially as a leader, of an organization, really putting bigger ideas out there into the community. And I think Brene Brown talks a lot about, um, you know, internal shame and kind of being difficult, or I'm sorry, being hard on ourselves. And something she throws out there is, would you talk to someone the same way you talk to yourself? Right, kind of that internal dialogue that some of us walk around with, right? It can be pretty harsh sometimes, man. So to hear you talk about just having that, self-compassion, that's a big message to share with people. So how have you noticed that, like coming in and, becoming the top leader in an organization? How has that been for you as far as kind of your self-compassion journey goes?
I mean, even during this conversation, I think it's cool when you get in conversations, you have like that realization where you're like, maybe that's what triggered me to even start being a little more fair to myself, like being like, yo, it's not that serious. Like, it's going to be okay. Like you're alive. Like, like there's so many things that we don't even think of as like blessings, but it's like, you're still able to go walk and go accomplish something. You're still able to go, work out. You're still able to hug your family, whatever those things are. And so I think even in that sense, like there was times in my work journey where transitioning out of basketball into being like a leader, I was like really, really like, on a routine and on like like this was every day was a game. And not to say that it's not a game, but like there has to be grace in the game. It's like if you play basketball, if you miss the shot and you just lose your mind because you missed one shot, you're probably not going to make the rest of the shots throughout the day. So, um, I think even having compassion with others, like that's something that as I continue to be a leader, like there's different ways that you have to interact with every individual. Certain people, they like to be kind of rallied up. Other people like to be compassionate and like have a conversation about why they feel X, Y, and Z. And so even for me, I think some days it's like I'm really hard on myself. And even I get in moments where I'm hard on the people around me, but I think that's important as well as kind of showing that compassion, like being good to not only yourself, but also the people around you. Also, not just the people not just your family, but the people who surround you in the world, because I think it's important because nobody really knows what anybody else is going through. You only know what they share with you or what you heard. So it's like, even being at Be a Good Person, one of the cool things that I've noticed is like we do a collaboration with the Broncos. And it's like, certain people may look at that as like, oh yeah, they collaborated with the NFL team, you know? And like, I think that's great. I think that's amazing that we collaborated with an NFL team, a hometown team, a great team. Like, they have lots of tradition. Like my dad played for that team, that it's our neighborhood team. It's right down the street from our warehouse. So I think that's beautiful. But at the same time, it's like, if you go to the game as a fan and you see the message Be a Good Person, like, is that going to maybe help you align with the concept that like maybe you shouldn't scream a cuss word at somebody, maybe you shouldn't be mad at somebody because they support their team, like it's one of those things that I think when you look deeper into the message, it's cool to collaborate with other people because it's like they have a megaphone and we have a message. And so like, why not allow that to kind of cross and then mend and then also like remind people through a great team, through a team logo and the message, like, hey, don't only be a good person, when you're at home, like when you come to the game, still be a good person, like still, if you see somebody, who's struggling, like take care of them too. If they're an opposing fan, like they're still a person. Make sure you still help them out, like all kinds of things like that. So I think the cool thing about being a be a good person is just like the constant reminder that like not only do you need to just take care of yourself, but like take care of the people around you. And certain times the situation may not condone a reward for you, but it's like, can you take care of somebody without a reward? Because I think that's important too. It's like a lot of a lot of times we find differences between people instead of the similarities. And it's like the things that we have in common are a lot more frequent than the things that we don't. So I almost turned that question to you. Like, what brought you into close proximity with the brand? Like, what's the message kind of mean to you? Because I'm curious. Like, a lot of times, I can talk about like be a good person forever, but I think about being a good person every day. You know, like so. I also like to think the beauty in the message is like be a good person is what it is to you. You know, I can tell you what it is to me, but what does it mean to you?
Yeah, that's dope, and it's cool to hear you talk about it. I mean, there's a lot of alignment, and then so the self leadership program, I guide people through. It's all around what's called becoming a valuegenic self leader, right? Value generative, and it's a lot. It's very similar to in the sense of how you described, what it means to you is, what it's all centered around this what we call the central question of life, love, and leadership, which we've talked about on the show a few times. What choice can I make and action can I take in this moment to create the greatest net value? So it's not create the greatest value for me, Jordan. It's not create the greatest value for Drick or CJ. It's net value, meaning I'm included in that. You both are included in that. Andrew, our producer, is included in that. So if we start training our mind to start looking for net value, goodness, if you will, right? That's ultimately what I've embraced. It's not just a thing people get trained in. It's actually a lifestyle, similar to how you're talking about. Be a good person. It's a way of life. You know what I mean? So be a good person. Yeah, it lined up spot on as far as being a person of value. CJ and I have a men's group where we talk about, how are we going to be the best versions of ourselves, not only for ourselves, but for our families, the people we love, our communities, etc. So, CJ, I'm curious if you would add anything as far as being a person of value goes in alignment with what Drick has already shared.
I mean, it's very odd that this conversation took this turn because as you were talking, Drick, I was literally going to ask you, could you tell me what it meant to you to be a good person, and then you reflexively put it back on us to talk about this. And for me, it's crazy because Jordan taught me. If you want to expand on this really quickly, but there's a definition of good that he taught me that kind of illuminated the way I see this. So, Jordan, real quick, can you just talk about the definition of good as it stands through self value through self leadership?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we talk about this definition, it's actually a scientific definition, which most people don't know. There's a scientific version of that. And when we hear good, we start thinking about morally good and morally bad. But this definition that we use in the program is more so around purpose, right? So the definition is something. I'm sorry, yeah. How it's defined is something is good to the degree that it has all the attributes required to fulfill its purpose. So I'll say that one more time. Something is good to the degree that it has all the attributes required to fulfill its purpose. Meaning, it's going to be challenging for us to fulfill whatever it may be, run an organization, have a solid partnership with the Broncos, um, all the other things you're doing in the community if we're not clear on what the purpose is. Like if we're not sure why we're even doing it, it's a moving target, right? So when we're clear in that, that's where a lot of people stop. They're like, okay, we're clear on the purpose, let's go do the thing. And what this definition really helps people do is start to uncover what's it going to take for us to get there, right? So those are the attributes, and those can show up in infinite ways, both tangible and intangible. Is it a mindset that's required to help us get there? Is it a certain partnership that needs to be created? Is it a skill set I need to go get some training on? Is it a consultant I need to go hire, right? Like it can be literally anything. But once people start understanding that it's not just about the purpose, it's more so focusing on what attributes it's going to take to help us get there, we start becoming more effective problem solvers. We become, much more innovative and creative. We start looking for solutions in a whole different way. So it becomes fun, right? And instead of focusing on, damn, like what's it gonna take? Or I'm sorry, why haven't we achieved this thing? Like we said, we're clear on our purpose. Why hasn't it happened yet? It's like, okay, well, let's look backwards and see what attributes we need to go get filled in there. So
And Jordan saying that, that's what brings me back to this point. That's why he can elaborate so much greater than I. Uh, it's that I told Jordan long ago that my purpose on this earth, and it's a very simple one, especially in today's society when there's sort of a way we have to go about things. But the higher we transcend, we've been told that the easier it gets, and so I've been trying to make things easier for myself. So if I can see all things through the lens of love, it benefits me obviously, but the outer shell begins to, the world that I see is so much more illuminated with that. And that's speaking with love, that's eating with love, that's giving you a hug with love, that's going into meditation with love. If I can do all that, those attributes that usually fall underneath that, kindness, concern, curiosity, patience, all those things tend to take care of themselves when I come back to source. And religiously, you can look at it, I look at it more spiritually, but source being God through all. And it just illuminates my world. This conversation is so much different when done with love. If I'm the fearful nature of, I hope the questions that I ask him, he doesn't become upset or something like that. Every question, every word that's said to you is done through love. Every word that I have with Jordan's done through love. Andrew, anybody. And it doesn't the great part is it doesn't make life perfect, but that's not the point of it. The life, as you said, is to be lived, to be more open to it. So the be a good person is just be the most loving person I can be. That's why your message is simple. It doesn't have to be complex. Someone reads your shirt and they go, I get that. To everybody to each their own, it means something different. But to me, when I read that, I know exactly what it means. It means be the most loving person in the situations that you've been placed in this day. So to me, that's what that means.
Okay. No, that's lovely. Did you feel like you got my gist of what being a good person means, or do you want me to elaborate more on what it means to
No,
me?
for you, I would still love to hear through you. Although like there's been parts
Yeah,
spoken
yeah,
about, what it means in its entirety to
yeah.
you.
So I think it continues to constantly transform in my mind and grow into something bigger, which is super cool. I feel like a lot of times, and maybe Jordan won't like this, but because of the why aspect. But I think I know the why, so I'm all good with the moving target kind of still happening. But I feel like the for me, be a good person is like something that in the future hopefully will be like received by the world and connect the whole world. Like because to me that message is so basic, but it's like so impactful because I can go to Morocco and wear a Be a Good Person shirt, and they're still gonna think it's really cool. Like people are still smiling, and I don't even know if they know what the whole thing means. I don't even know. I don't even know if they can read it. But like again, like me smiling and interacting with people in different countries, or them barely like just walking up and asking me what my shirt says, and me like telling them, or me telling Driss to tell them in a different language what be a good person mean. Like there's so many different elements of it. So it's like it's constantly evolving because initially I was like, oh yeah, it'd be like super cool to like, take this like nationally, and like really impact like people just throughout America. And then I was like, maybe that's a moving target. Okay. Internationally. And then I was like, maybe outer space. Just kidding. Not outer space, but, uh, but again, it's just like the beauty of it is I was at a Broncos game yesterday, like I mentioned earlier, and I was chatting with you guys, and like I was eating some popcorn. I'm eating popcorn, and like I missed a piece, hits the ground. I like look down at it, think about it, and I just grab it and like walk it over to the trash can. And the girl goes, I can't lie. I've never seen anybody do that in my life. You just picked up a piece of food off the ground at a football game and took it to the trash can. She said, I believe in that message that you have on your shirt because you didn't have to do that. Nobody else would have done that. But it was like so unique to me because her friend grabbed some popcorn, spilled some, and like it wasn't like we had to have a conversation about it. She just consciously picked it up, went over to the trash can, and like again, we're in a football stadium. There's stuff all over the ground. But it's like somebody's gonna have to pick that up. Like whether it's you, me, or the custodian, like somebody has to pick that up. So like maybe you made their day a little easier because they don't have to come to this side of the room. Like, and it's like it's so hard for me to even define some days what be a good person is because it's like you said, it's a lifestyle. Like I can't be like, well, if you do this, you're a good person. If you do that, you're a good person. And I think a lot of that comes down to like, I'm not trying to judge anybody for who they are or what they're doing. Or like certain times people will like have a serious conversation with me and be like, well, like, I don't know if I'm a good person. And I tell them like, oh, it's perfect because you can make a decision right here in this moment that you're going to be a good person. And you can wear the shirt right now. Like I can't hold what you did yesterday, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, like any of those things against you, because this is a conscious decision. Like you can make the decision right here in this moment. And so that's the beauty of it because I think as we continue to grow and like, it's like you said, CJ, like you've been seeing it more places. Like that's the beauty of it to me because, okay, if we can get it in more places and then we can get the frequency of it not only being in more places, but also more people wearing it. Like for me, when I see somebody wearing a Be a Good Person shirt, I'm like, oh, that's my homie. I don't even know
Mhm,
them though.
mhm, mhm,
Like I'm like,
mhm,
yeah,
mhm,
I like your shirt.
mhm.
Hit them with a smile, keep it pushing. Like I'm not like, hey guys, I'm the CEO of Be a Good Person. Like I'm just showing love. Like yo, I see you. I just want people to be seen, even if it's eye contact. Whatever it is, like a smile. I think it doesn't all have to be like so programmed, but it's that's the beauty of it is like whatever it means to you. And I hope to see that continue to grow and build. And I think like even as I kind of continue to grow with the brand, it's amazing because it's like it's not only an everyday person who thinks be a good person's cool. It's celebrities who think be a good person's cool. It's politicians who think be a good person's cool. It's teachers. It's kids. It's unique to me because a lot of brands you get kind of pigeonholed into one niche. It's like your demographic is this age group, and it's like yeah, for sure. Like it might be, but for Be a Good Person, it's like it's demographic-less. Anybody can wear Be a Good Person. You can put Be a Good Person on infants. Like, and that's why we created onesies, like it's like have your kid believe in this message from a young age. But even my grandfather, 80 plus years old, he tells me every time I call him, he's like, man, I had your ball cap on and everybody keeps complimenting on my hat. And I'm like, that's great. Like, but again, it's like it impacts every single person. And like we talked about, it impacts us all differently on this call. It impacts probably everybody who's listening to this differently. But I think that's the beauty of it is like if we're going for a target of even perfect, even though that's probably unattainable, if we land on good, like we're good, as simple as that is.
Yeah. No, it's crazy as I think about your shirt. I'm thinking about it's almost as if with your shirt, it's like plus putting on that Superman costume of sorts, obviously, but it's in the real world. It's like you're a superhero. You have the ability, like you said, there's something you said about someone's going to have to pick up that trash, and that statement kind of expands if you think about it in a more metaphorical sense. Somebody's going to have to pick up this trash. Why not let it be me, right? But that's the superhero in me. This seems like a small thing, but that person over there saw you do that superhero act and will remember that for a really long time. And perhaps it's going to change them and transform them and make them greater too. So it's really cool to hear you speak on that, man.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and it blends right in to the central question that we brought up, right? Like, what choice can I make and action can I take right now in this moment to create the greatest net value? So that's considering that someone else is going to have to pick that up, right? So it's a great example of that, that question in action. And yeah, again, like that question doesn't talk about a right or a prescriptive way of doing something, right? We all have unique ways of creating value in this world as well. But as long as we're thinking about how can we create value or be a good person in the sense that you're talking about, not just for me, but for others, I mean, there's so much alignment between that central question and how you're talking about the brand and how you're living it out.
I appreciate that.
Um, Absolutely,
I do
brother.
want to ask, like, CJ, I don't know if it will be part of the recording, but like that meditation we did, like that was
Oh yeah, yeah, please. So we
that got me
meditated
right.
before for the audience. Yeah, we meditated. Go
Okay.
ahead, go ahead.
No, but like even that, like I can't lie. A lot of times, like as people are going into something, they're like, "Oh, I have no idea what to expect." You know, like whether it's a workout or like a podcast or, you know, even in your first day at work or wherever, you know, going into a new place. I think a lot of times people are like so worked up and like they're so anxious. But even for me, I don't even get nervous about stuff. But like after we did that, like as we were breathing, I was like, oh yeah, like this is sweet. Like I felt a whole new calmness, you know. And I don't meditate like very often. It's not really something I would say I know how to do. And your response may be like you don't have to know how to do it, you know. But even that, I was like, man, I haven't started doing that with people before they work out, like all kinds of different ways, like even before a meeting. So it's not like so much angst surrounding everything, you know, and so much like pressure, like, oh man, this is about to be, and then you get in and you get done and you're like, it wasn't all that. Like, it wasn't bad at all.
You know where that pressure comes from though. I like Drake, when you talk about that. The reason why we did that meditation before was because the split self. The we're not necessarily all here in this conversation if we're perhaps haven't cleansed or cleared our plate of any meal that we had before this or something. So the reason why is simply for that. So I can be the most intentional in this conversation, but I can have a quote unquote good conversation. This conversation currently is fulfilling its purpose. And for me, that purpose is to have a loving conversation built around growth. You use the word twice now about transformation. My friendship with Jordan has transformed over the years and the growth of it. And I hope that all men are listening to this conversation because I've known you through two or three conversations now, but the transformation I know that I can have as a I can say Drick talk have a conversation with you. I've been able to expand and grow through these conversations because of the intentionality that I've placed behind it, and that's I attribute a lot of the goodness that's come from the last maybe 4 years from my life to the practice that Jordan introduced me to of meditation that allowed me to be more intentional with these types of conversations. And if I can, with that being said, I'm curious, what are, if you had to think and start, deciphering, are there any practices that you carry sort of religiously or disciplinary, like towards the way you approach your life, whether it be gym, anything mental, books, things like that? Are there practices that you instill in your life?
Um, the gym's definitely one. Like even and this is my like version of meditation is like the steam room at the gym. I'm in there for like 10 to 15 minutes, like really trying to sit in my own space. You know, there is no phones, not a lot of noise, you know, like even the the heat and like like, you know, there's always like after even a minute, you're like, dang, I could get out of here. Like it's hot in here, you know, but just the lack of like commitment to being in like a tough situation and just being comfortable in it. Like I think that's a lot of why I like the steam room because it's like this is really hot. Like you could easily get out right now. Nobody would know. Like you know, like you know. But it's like for me, locking into a mental state and being like, oh yeah, you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Like you got to be able to still be poised even when you're hot. You know, when you're sweating, when you want water. You know, and obviously those are like simple things when you break them down, but it's like, you know, the ability to breathe is something that you call into question in the steam room. Like, you know, water is something you're like, I need some water, you know, like all these simple things that, you know, like we don't like basic concepts, but it's like those are all coming into play in that steam room. And still, like, even mental toughness, you're like, yo, I should get out. It's like, nah, stay in here a little while longer. Like, you know, just delve into that. So I would say, like, the gym helps me, like, stay even keeled. Not that I'm like in the gym lifting heavy weights. I did enough of that in like college and stuff, but now I do a lot of like band work, a lot of mobility stuff, and just like staying functional. And I think that kind of even gives me like a different sense of peace, because a lot of times, like when I used to go work out in college or even post college, like I used to lift heavy weights and I like leave like amped, like almost to the point where I was like, I feel like I could go run through a wall, you know? And now, like, by changing the practice that I work out and like changing the way I work out, it kind of gives me like more of a sense of peace and like, I don't know, almost an understanding, finish off the workout with the steam room. I feel like that helps me a lot. Another thing that's like, I don't know if you could call this a practice, but like I really enjoy like spending time and like having deep conversations with, whether that's like my family, my friends, like just checking in on them, like, because I think a lot of times in the speed of the world, people get like caught up like doing everything but checking in on the people like who care about them, who got them to where they are, you know, all those things. And so I think that's one thing, even for me, like I'll get to moving too fast and like forget to really like check in, you know, not just like, hey, how's it going? How, you having a good day? All right, cool. Well, you need anything? Oh, I'll talk to you later. And it's like, oh, like, you know, your grandpa didn't feel like that was a good combo, you know, like they didn't feel like there was a lot of love shared. And so it's like you say, like going into the conversation with more like love and compassion, you know, and like taking care of people, because it's like a lot of times other people are moving so fast they haven't even taken the time to think about some of the questions you're going to ask them. So just you opening up their mind to like the thought, like, hey, do you have a work life balance? Like, are you taking time for yourself? Like, and that's something somebody asked me last week. Like, he randomly just first time meeting him, gentleman named Drew. He's one of the owners of Sweet Cow, and he's like, "How's your like work life balance?" And I was like, "Why'd you ask me that?" You know, like, why'd you ask me that? And he was just like, no reason. I was just curious. Like, you seem like you're really busy. Like, I'm not necessarily saying there's a flaw. I was just curious if you feel like there's a balance. And I was like, yeah, there's a balance. There's definitely a balance. But again, that is something I struggled with in the past. Like, it was like work 24/7. Because when you're playing a sport, that's what it is. It's like everything revolves around that sport, you know? So that's kind of my concept on just all that and the routines that I do. I do try and like listen to a lot of like podcasts and stuff. That's really cool to me. I think like getting different people's insight is awesome. But going back to like checking in on my friends and family and like people who surround me, like just being open to like going and having conversations with like people I don't know. I think a lot of times like that sometimes serves me better than listening to a podcast, because like these people haven't talked to, you know, like sometimes on a podcast it's like, not that it's repetitive or like it's just like you kind of know what you're getting into. Obviously, every conversation kind of goes a different way, but like certain times on if you're listening to something, you can't steer the conversation. You can't ask for more context. Well, can you give me more? You know, but if you're talking to somebody, you can be like, hey, can you tell me more about that? You know, so that's kind of why I really love like just conversation, to the smallest form, like whether that's a group conversation, a one-on-one conversation. And like even when I met Jordan, like he was having a one-on-one conversation, I kind of joined the conversation. One of my buddies joined the conversation, and then, you know, like we just kind of flowed in conversation and talked about a lot of dope stuff. And I think that's kind of one thing that is maybe another undervalued thing, but more people should like be willing to have like that random conversation with that random person, because a lot of times that random person's got a lot of stuff to say. And, you know, whether you only get one good little nugget out of it or you get hundreds, like it's probably worth it, you know, and everything kind of happens for a reason. So even like the encounter with Jordan, like we didn't plan to meet each other. We just met each other and there was great vibes. He even had a be a good person hat on. I was like, oh yeah, yeah, so you're the man.
Before like you had it on before and it didn't even know you was gonna run into each other?
No.
I had no idea.
Wow.
Talk about, yeah, a serendipitous moment, man. It's cool to see it all coming together. And what I was taking away from that, Drake, of, you know, through the few practices that you mentioned, it's this conscious willingness to slow down, right? And how that is an art form that is going further and further away. And it's a
Sure.
big part of what meditating is, right? It's checking in and and making the conscious effort to pay attention to your breath, to pay attention to some of the thoughts that are coming up, right? But to your point, as far as, connecting with people and having an intentional, reason to do it. CJ and I talk a lot about, so add this to the list of be a good person, right? When you're the definition of it for us is, or a version of it, a portion of it is actually meaning it when we're asking someone how they're doing, right? It's pretty common, and just modern day conversations like, "What's up, man? Like, how's it going? How you doing?" Right? But actually meaning that and checking in and giving someone the space to express how they really are doing is something that, again, like, is going away very quickly with just how quickly the things do happen, and how people feel pressured to always be busy doing something, right? It's like, what if you took 5 minutes to have a more meaningful conversation as opposed to had five different 1 minute conversations that didn't really have any, like, substance to them, right? So just really support what you're saying there, man. So I'm curious for you, as far as this conscious effort to slow down. How have you noticed that have an impact on even how you're interacting with other people, or what has that brought out of others? I guess is the question.
I think it just creates like a safe space for people. And also even for me, like, there's certain times I'm talking to people and I'm like, dang, I really needed this conversation. I don't know you though. Like, I have no idea who you are, but this is crazy. Like, and I mean, the world is kind of a crazy place. So like, sometimes like women are not necessarily as like comfortable speaking to men who they don't know, which makes sense. Same thing with like even at post COVID, a lot of people don't even know if they want to talk to people. You see people, they see you look at them and they put their head down like, I'm trying not to talk. Like, let me get by you. And like, I laugh because it's like, don't you like, I see you. I want you to feel seen. You putting your head down makes me feel like you don't want to be, like, you don't feel like you're, I don't know if worthy is the right word, but like if you're, let's just go with worthy because I can't think of another word, worthy enough to be seen. But like that's one of the beauties for me is like I think a lot of times, luckily I'm 6'8" and tall, but people like look at me and they like think I'm gonna not look at them back, and I just smile, and it's like you can see them be like, like, oh, he smiled, and it's like that's so simple, but like people are like trying to act like they don't see you, like, yo, like, whoa, you didn't see me just now, like, and even for me, especially being 6'8", sometimes I'm like, all right, come on, I know you saw me, like, there's no way we're like this to get by each other in the hallway, but you didn't see me, like. There's no way. So I think sometimes we get away from like the simple actions of just like being very conscious and like, hey, like, even if it's somebody who works at the established, like at Lifetime, I say hi to everybody in Lifetime. Like whether you work there, you're just a person. Like if you'll give me the time of day to be like, hey, I'm saying hey because I want you to feel seen. Like no, I'm not going out of my way to like interrupt your set. Like hey man, how's it going? Like, but again, I think everybody just sometimes needs to slow down and like take time to be in the space they're in. People are always like, yeah, I don't have time. Like don't have time to do what? Like if you don't have time to check in on people, who's gonna have time to check in on you? Like that's a full circle thing. And so a lot of times it's like we all know like life gets fast and you want to go at this uberant speed and then it's like, man, I'm deflated. So then you got days or hours or however long it takes you to rebuild. But it's like that's one of the issues of going so fast. A lot of times like our bodies, our minds are like, yo, you have to slow down. You have to slow down. And so like I move at a pretty fast pace, but I overall it's slowed down by taking like those moments to like reflect real quick. And now I might be taking on after I talk to you two about some meditation strategies because I'm about to start getting in that car before I get out. Do a little meditation, all kinds of things. I'm telling you, yeah, CJ really put me on, and I guess Jordan, you put me on and crossovers. But I appreciate y'all.
Man, it's so cool. I have a lot of synergy with you in the aspect of you said something like you expect everybody to take care of you, but you don't want to check in on nobody else, right? And my girlfriend, she always laughs at me. So we'll go to the gym or on a hike. I'm saying hi to everybody. You know, I'm the mayor of my own town. She calls me the mayor of like this hiking trail called Fryman, but I am the mayor of my own town. This is the body that I live in, and this is the world that I get to choose. And I would oftentimes want to have more people in my interactions that look familiar to me than a world that looks unfamiliar. I run into the same people every day at the gym, and I have no idea nor care. Like obviously there's nuances to this, right? But understanding like this is the world I'm cultivating. And again, it's not just for myself necessarily. Your interaction, Drick, I'm sure with people has illuminated not just the extension of I guess the clothing brand, but a message that's behind it that again you're talking about. You were like, I'm dreaming big, I'm talking about the world. Dream as big as you want, because if in the end it's to help the greater good of the world, I would never turn against that. It's you had a beautiful message there about connecting with everybody. So I hope the audience really takes that in, because in this day and age where everything is so individualistic, I have my own phone, my own this, my own that, my own Instagram page, things that are all about my life. How often, other than a click or a point or a clap hands emoji, am I really investing into other people's lives? One of the most important quotes I ever heard was, everybody needs to be seen, loved, heard, and valued. It's never changed, and it's never veered from my mind in an interaction with any other human. It's such an important thing to be seen by people, to be heard. And really, Jordan put in this, my world is the value. If you see value in somebody else, you can literally see the energetic shift of a room.
Hmm.
It's a beautiful thing, bro. Amen to everything you said.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I mean, and like again, not that I'm trying to get y'all out of here, but you guys just like I appreciate y'all for giving me the space and like I'm excited to just continue to build on even like our friendship, like, and be able to help you guys and just continue to do vice versa. Like, it's like like, I know I keep talking about this meditation, but I mean it. Like, that was really like, that was impactful for me right there. Like, I knew as soon as in the middle of that, I was like, oh yeah, I'm about to have a good week. I already feel it. Like, it's Monday. Certain people are at home off work. I'm like, oh yeah, we got to get to it. Like, that got me right. So I appreciate both of y'all. Like, honestly.
Bro, Jay changed my life through a perspective in terms of Jay was he offered and this has been said in other episodes, he kept offering me this invitation to enter this world of meditation. Like we could maybe like have you meditated and slowed down, and out here in Hollywood things are go go go. It's like I've got this, like I read books about how to better myself. um and it's a different transformation. And look, everybody's different. There are practices around the world that have nothing to do with this. Meditation is just one that stuck with me. But it's again, it's this process of Jordan inviting me, constantly deflecting. Then there was a day I was like, let's welcome this in. Let's just be a little bit curious about what this is. This is weird. I'm sitting 1,000 miles away from my friend on a Zoom, listening to a meditation with him. This is kind of weird. I'm kind of quiet now. The world is quiet. Jordan's on the other. I'm not even thinking about anything. 10 minutes later, you open your eyes. You're like, that wasn't so bad. It was the weirdest jump. It was the scariest jump to ever do that. The weirdest, but just sit with myself, right? I was with Jordan in the same space and time, but just sitting with myself is one of the scariest things I ever did. The scariest things I ever did, just to be with my thoughts. And then I was like, oh, oh, like you said, once you do it, it's like, oh, that ain't so bad. It's uncomfortable, but get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Sit in that sauna in your mind for a couple more minutes. Okay, cool. And then after you're out of the sauna, you can bring that conversation to people. Man, some crazy shit came up in my head. Jordan, man, like that's what we would do. I would talk to him after the meditations. A lot of stuff came up in my head, man. Let's talk about it. It was the dopest thing ever.
No, for real. No, without a doubt. That's cool. I didn't even realize that. Well, maybe Jordan, one day you can get me right. All right. Maybe I need that phone call. Let me do it. Let
Of
me do
course,
a guest appearance on the meditation call whenever y'all make that happen.
100%, man. No, I think this is, yeah, just the beginning of yeah, as you say, like just a blossoming friendship, man, and brotherhood, and I hope people are inspired too. You know, kind of what you said earlier, Drake, about, you know, men in particular don't always have, you know, the level of connection that has been created in this conversation here. So hopefully, you know, to also point out one of the things you mentioned earlier, Drake, as far as the willingness, man, the willingness to change, the willing like to embrace it, right? And that's kind of married into what you were just saying, CJ. Like there was one day where you were just willing. You were just willing to give it a try, and it's been a game changer, man. And one of the biggest lessons from meditation is that we are not our thoughts. We are the person noticing the thoughts. Like, and if we can tap into that person, then we get to be more conscious about how we interact with them, how we move, etc. And then, you know, when we stack on top of it, just your philosophy, Drake, of being a good person, right? We get to more consciously do that and tap into that by simply slowing down. First, even if it's 5 minutes, man. Like that was what, a minute tops that we did that together, right? And that shifts everything. So it's it, it it's worth slowing down to keep, you know, making the impact that you're working on, man. You know, so um but yeah, that said, as we start to move towards the end of our conversation here, I'm just curious, was there anything that you were prepared for us to ask, or that you want to also get out there for, you know, the people listening, or just anything else you want to vocalize as far as, you know, any final insights or just thoughts that you have that you'd like to share?
Uh, I'm trying to think. I mean, the only thing I would share is just like I think one thing I didn't touch on very much is like the vehicle that I want Be a Good Person to be, and that our team is kind of building out. Whether that's like if you're a creative, if you're an artist, a photographer, a videographer, a nonprofit, like, you know, whatever that is, it's like we're not only trying to work with large entities, we want to work with the full spectrum of things. It's like that's part of the beauty of being demographic-less is like we're going to start doing more stuff with the youth, because it's like, hey, it's a little harder to change a 40-year-old's mind on what kind of person they want to be. This 6-year-old doesn't even know who they're going to be, you know, yet. Anyway, they're growing in, learning, and going through so many experiences, but it's like impacting the youth too. So like there's a lot. I say all that to just say, like, if we can help, like, we're here to help any way we can. There's nothing too big or too small that we want to be a part of. So it's like even like jumping on podcasts, or, you know, helping out people with small things. Like it's small things a lot of times have carry a heavy weight, you know. And I think that's something that's undervalued by a lot of people. So for us, like even me, like I'm not too big or too small for any conversation. Like being the CEO of Be a Good Person is a blessing, but it's like it's not something that I take and like outgrow certain people. You know, there is obviously time restrictions in life, but it's like I always make time. Like I got you have to. So I think in saying that, like check out what we do. Check out our website if you want some merch. Like I think it's even if it's a pair of socks, a wristband, you know, a keychain. Like I think it's something that everybody can find an item on our website and kind of just believe in the message. And even if you don't want to buy an item, like just follow our Instagram. Sometimes it's good to be scrolling and just have a subtle reminder, like be a good person. You know, I think that's probably the only other thing I'd say. But again, like I think my final message to everybody is just like don't get so caught up trying to be perfect. Like be fair to yourself, be a good person to yourself, be a good person to everybody who surrounds you, and not just the people who are close to you. You know.
Mm. That's incredible, bro. Hey, I often the sell is the hardest thing, but the sell, if it's through the soul, is so much easier because it's so much more authentic. And you've certainly, obviously, we had a little pre-interview before this and everything, but you've garnered a fan in me for what it is that you do and what you represent. So before Jordan takes us out, I just want to thank you for your time, because it is certainly valued here. A lot of and I believe in your message, and I hope the audience is listening and go check out Be a Good Person, get you some, and live the message. Again, I'm not endorsing this in a way that I was paid to say this. I believe in what you're doing, bro. So if you're an audience member, please do go check out, because it's a beautiful thing you're talking about right
I
here.
appreciate that, bro. Much
Yeah.
love. I appreciate all those sentiments.
Absolutely. Well, and I guess super quickly, that said, Drake, is there, as far as if someone did want to check either you out personally or of course be a good person, are there any social media platforms or, websites that people can head over to get in touch?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, my Instagram's a great platform. My email is really simple. It's just drick@beagoodperson.com. So DRICK at beagoodperson.com. My Instagram's DrickyB, DRICKB, or what, DRICKYB underscore. And honestly, just hit me up. Like I always check my requests. I always check everything. Like I'm always down to connect with anybody because I think that's the beauty of life is like the connection you can really have on people. And so just reach out if you need anything. And obviously, Jordan, CJ, if you got anybody who needs anything, you can give them my number or whatever. It doesn't matter.
You're in trouble because I'm about to hit you up. I got. It's a holidays coming. I work with two organizations. You're gonna be
I
hearing
love
from
it.
me.
I love it.
You're gonna be hearing
That's
from me.
great.
Be a good person takes LA, baby.
Right.
For real, please take it over. Please take this whole town over. It needs every good person it can take.
No, for sure. For sure. I might hit you up about that. We might have to come down there sooner than later.
Please do a pop-up shop with this town needs everybody in a be a good person shirt so they stop throwing their cigarette butts out the
Oh
window.
yeah, right. You're not lying. Smog creation.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, as CJ said, Drake, we are so, so, so grateful, man. That's the word that just comes to mind. Gratitude, and for you to just show up in the authentic way that you did, and share your message about what you're building and what it means to be a good person. Um, I I guarantee people are going to be inspired to start understanding what that definition is for themselves, and that's also an open invitation. So if you're listening to this right now, if you're taking anything away, start defining what be a good person means to you, right? And not just for you, but for others as well, and watch how your life starts to change. So, Drake, thank you again. Please come back and have another conversation with us at a later point, and we'll definitely be in touch. And we support everything you're doing, man. So, thank you for being you, and thank you for being here today.
Appreciate that, fellas. Much love. Again, thanks for having me on. Like, thanks for taking the time, creating a space for me. And you already know, whenever you need me to come back, I'll be back.
Yeah.
All right, fellas.
Love you, man.
Appreciate y'all.
All right. Till next time.
Love.
Thank you for joining us today on the Practicing People's podcast. We hope you found our conversation inspiring and thought-provoking. We appreciate your support and passion for personal growth and self-improvement.
To help build the Practicing People's community, please follow us on Instagram at Practicing People's Podcast for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and engaging discussions. Liking and sharing our posts will spread the word about the podcast to others who can benefit from these conversations. You can also reach out to us at our website, www.practicingpeoples.com, for more materials and ways to tap into the community.
Leaving a rating and review on your preferred podcast platform is a valuable way to support us and help potential listeners discover our show.
Remember, personal growth is a journey we embark on together. Let's build a community where we uplift and inspire one another to achieve our true potential.
Thank you for being part of the Practicing People's podcast family. And until next time, keep practicing and keep growing.